Here we are, 25 years after.
Who is here from the actors? I mean, you've seen Rüdiger. You've seen Rüdiger, Signor Inverno. Joel and Sophia. Unbelievable. You didn't tell me that you were grown-ups. There's also Zay, who did the costumes and the sets. Get up, Zay. Yeah. And there's the producer.
That's right.
Did we forget anybody? Is anybody else here? No. Hey, Joel. Wow, 25 years ago. Do you have children? Sophia? Oh, they're sleeping. Oh.
She's there for the next one.
Okay, so here we are.
Wim, this started with almost like a joke when I find you in Berlin, and you told me, yes, it will be fantastic to come back to Lisbon, but I'm interested in music and I need something that will make me come, and that's where Mother Deus arrived. And I want you now to say something about all this process.
Well, we want to make this film because there was an open invitation by the city of Lisbon, who was European Capital of Culture, and it was going to be the 100th anniversary of the cinema. And there was the idea, the vague idea, that something could be done that connected these two things. And I loved Lisboa, so when Paulo asked me, I only had this one thing. I said, Paulo, you have to find some music for me. I need some guides to the city, because, I mean, of course I'd love to shoot in Lisbon again, but look, I have no story. I can try to invent a story, but more than anything, I need some music. And Paulo said, don't worry, we'll find it. So I came and we started to write the thin little idea of the sound engineer and the film director who had disappeared. Wasn't much of a story, but it was something at least. Signor Inverno. And the ridiculous director. Don't you think he's completely nuts? I think Federico is completely over. He lost his mind. It's a good thing that Signor Inverno is bringing him back to his senses. So I still needed something. I still badly needed something. And then one day, Paulo said, come on, I think I have what you've... It's a band called Madre Deus, and I didn't know their name. And we went to Moraria, I think. It was in Moraria, and it was on the second or third floor of an industrial building. And going up the stairs, I heard Teresa's voice. They were rehearsing. They were not recording yet. They were rehearsing songs for a new album. And as we walked up, I slowly got closer to the voice, and it's a little bit like the scene with Mr. Winter discovering discovering the music just by listening, and then he goes closer. So, and then we entered the room, and I saw the band play, and Pedro and Teresa stood there solidly and sang, and I realized as we come in, we can make the movie. This is it. And then it turned out that they were actually making an album of songs about Lisbon. And that's exactly what I wanted, so. And they sent me all the songs they had written. It was way too many, I couldn't use so many. And they made me select 6 or 7 or so. And these songs then became the backbone of the film. And of course we're all terribly in love with Teresa. Most of all in the form of Mr. Winter. Fictional, of course, strictly fictional. And she became the film and the face and the voice of the film. And we had fun. We had fun with shooting with this hand crank camera. That was, in my memory, that was the most fun, because we just went out and cranked and cranked. Not quite as silly as the two of them in the end. And we had enough money to shoot for 4 weeks. 4 or 3?
4. I think we shot 4 weeks with a small crew. You saw it in the credits. A very small crew. Some of them were already in State of Things. Were 13 years before, and some of them were in State of Things without playing really a role, like Zé Maria, that after was first assistant, Mario, that was a chauffeur in State of Things, became electrician, things like that. You know, it was the moment. It was, you could just say, let's do a film, and we made it. And it was I think what you say, it was a kind of, we had I don't know how to say in English, faith in the cinema enormously. You know, we believe in cinema enormously. That something could come out of, without script or something like that. But for that you needed someone like Wim.
It would have been great if we had had a better script. I never thought I could write good dialogue. So I wrote some of the clumsiest dialogues in the history of cinema. But Mr. Winter carried them off with grace. How are your legs? You did it, actually. Some of my stupid dialogues. Does any of you have a question?
Yeah, sure.
That would be very nice, because, hey, good.
What do you think about Lisbon now after 25 years?
25 years later, I must say I'm happy that we shot in '94, because I have a feeling we caught something that was about to disappear and that was gone a few years later. I mean, you saw it so drastically up on the aqueduct. On one side it was already the freeway, on the other side the houses were about to be torn away. So we just caught a certain kind of Lisbon that had still been completely intact when we did State of Things, you see. For instance, I was looking for the Texas bar from the State of Things for Lisbon Story, and it was gone.
Not anymore.
I don't know anybody here even remembers the Texas bar.
We both.
Yeah. Anyway, but there still was the guy who was doing the knives in the streets. There was still amazing stuff, and there were not so many tourists.
It's true, it was. This old part of our family and everything was still like that. It changed a lot in the last years, like all of you know. We had the chance to know how Lisbon had a popular people living, not, you know, what the people is living now in mostly in
Yeah,
Lisbon.
like in any other city. In my city of Berlin, it's the same thing. I live in an area that was a real populous city, and now I don't hear any German anymore. It's English and Spanish and Japanese and Chinese and kind of stuff. And this is happening to a lot of cities. But I was happy that we were in Lisbon before it happened. And I hope we're not responsible for it.
You never know. Maybe one day they say Lisbon story make us come to Lisbon. All these tourists and came to see the places of Lisbon
Yes.
story. Maybe it's that.
Yes, it happened. I know some people who came to Lisbon because of the film. From Japan, a lot of people.
But it's true. A lot of people came from Japan here because of Lisbon story. Because the album of Madre Deus and Lisbon story was a success in Japan. And a lot of them discover Lisbon through the film. And okay, you just have to ask the tax to the city, to compensate all this.
And they all wanted to buy these hats that Mr. Wenders is wearing. We should have marketed them, but instead we only made 2 prototypes. Right, Domenica? 2. Maybe it would still work if we make a few more.
It's still a
For
film.
tourists.
Is as well.
Too late now.
But it's still a film. It's a film. What is important, I think, it was the film. The first question: where was the cinema? Where it can go? Where to take, image? How to do with them and everything. Everything in '94. Nobody was questioning that. You start questioning that. Something that afterwards and even today. I don't think we have the real question, but you start putting the questions.
Me? Well, I hope they put some questions.
The film started putting them.
The film asked some questions and some strange questions, but this whole idea of the innocent image by Friedrich is so crazy. But it was at a time, you see, all the kids had these cameras and he tried to find other ways to film. And it was before digital cinema arrived, but it was in the air that it was all going to be so relative and everybody was going to be a director and everybody could make movies. It was just the beginning of that. And the kids made amazing films. Ballet movies, right? Sophia was a great dancer. Did you continue? No.
So in a way you were showing the future, because when you said you were talking about video tourists, it's exactly what's happening now in the world.
Yeah, but you know,
About the image, exactly.
the Video Turistas was improvised by Mr. Winter. No? Rudiger, what do you think? It wasn't written. Out of a sudden it came out of your mouth. Yeah.
Improvising during the scene came the word videos.
The term didn't catch. It should be in every dictionary now. Vidioten.
Hello.
Hey.
Oh, thank you for this anniversary. Well, 25 years ago, it was just 1 year before the 100th anniversary centennial of cinema, right? Which was so. In a way, I don't know if you guys thought a lot about that, but you were like shooting showing registers from the early cinema. You were talking about Ziga Vertov and silent cinema, but you were also capturing the end of that era, right? If you film, I don't know, 5 years later, right? Not only it would be another Lisbon, you would have lots of things that would complicate the script itself. We would have cell phones and everything that would not be able to capture, right? To create the obstacles that the main character goes through, right? Goes through. Did you think of that at the time? Were you conscious of this, you, Paulo, and about the sets? How did you choose the sets? You talked about Moraria, but about the kids' park. Did you write the script as you were going? I mean, so you wrote the script from the locations that you used, or did you already have a few in mind, like for the children's park, for example, and the popular housing that probably, I don't know if it exists anymore because it's so. Thank you.
We had about 4 weeks of preparation, vaguely. After a week or two, we've discovered Madrideus, but I had 4 weeks and I was walking around a lot, and I took a lot of streetcars, and I photographed a lot, and when we started shooting, I basically knew all the places where I wanted to shoot. We didn't have the story really ready yet, but I was afraid we would get it ready because I thought it was better if it wasn't really ready. Because the situation was strange enough of the sound engineer arriving and the director was gone and he would start recording sounds, and I figured we're going to find a way to have Frederick appear. And we just shot from one day to another, and we shot in all the places I liked a lot, and they were very different still. And a lot of the places we shot because we knew they were not going to exist much longer. Like the little area around behind the house where they lived, that was all condemned already, and we knew it was going to, in the next year, it was all going to be erased. So a lot of things we shot because we knew they were endangered and they were disappearing.
Children's Park, for example.
I don't know how I found that. It was such a strange no man's land. It was. I think I found it at some point, and I thought I'd like to shoot it, but I didn't know how it would fit. And out of a sudden, when the idea of the garbage cameras, this strange landscape, does it still exist? Probably not, no? Does it still exist? It was the weirdest, nondescript place. It was one of these no places that you find sometimes in every city, and they don't belong, and they are weird and ugly. So I was happy that we had such a place because it fitted with Frederick's bizarre theories.
Why is his leg broken? Rüdiger Vogler's leg is broken. Why? Is there a deeper meaning, or was it real?
I wanted him to come with a handicap. I think the idea, I mean, he could have come without a handicap, but I thought a handicap would be good for the character. And I think the real reason is because Robert Mitchum has a broken leg in Rio Bravo. And I always wanted to make a movie with an actor in a broken leg. And I was really waiting for the moment when he would take it off and would scratch himself. Rüdiger, do you remember why we did this thing with the leg? You didn't have it, I mean, it was...
You explained it
I did?
right now.
Oh, good, yeah. We had so little story, so at least a handicap was a little story.
Over here, sorry.
And he couldn't be a broken arm because he needed both arms for the sound.
Hey, Wim. It's like quite well known that sound people are like really neglected on film sets. They're like the unsung heroes. So was this like a homage or like a chance to praise sound engineers? Why was the sound engineer the protagonist?
This had a lot to do with my very first idea when Paolo invited me and said, maybe we could make a film, but we have to do it fast. And shooting in Lisbon, I felt, my very first idea was Lisbon was one of the few cities in the world that had their own soundscape, that really sounded like no other cities. And I liked the idea to discover a city through the sounds. And then Philip Winter has had many professions in the films we did together. He was a truck driver and a movie projector repairman, and he was a detective, and he was a writer. He had many professions, but he'd never been a sound engineer. And you're right, they are the unsung heroes, and I like the idea that he would be called to help the director, because that's really what happened in the history of cinema. Directors ran out of ideas because they didn't have sound, and then sound really helped them in a big way. So it was linked to the idea that this was a film that would come out at the 100th anniversary of movies, and we tried to have little things in the course of the film that would somehow relate to that, and the old hand crank camera and the reference to Buster Keaton and Sigar Vertov were part of that. And we tried to have as much fun as people probably had in the beginning of cinema, when it wasn't all so serious. You see, these first people who made movies, they didn't think it was serious business at all. The Lumiere brothers, even after 10 years, thought they had invented a fairground attraction. They didn't think it was going to remain. They thought it was something, it was fun, basically. They didn't think they had made the greatest invention of basically the late 19th, 20th century. It changed the entire century, their invention. They had no idea. They thought it was of no consequence, their invention. So these people in the beginning were very light-hearted, and movie making was not serious business until the Germans took over.
Thanks. You made sound recording cool again, so
Thank you.
Thank you.
Up there.
Hi. So it's a question about what you mentioned before. So the film before Lisbon being like a tourist city somehow, and the thing about something that you mentioned before digital, people, like young people filming nice things, and it seems that before digital, when you live like something like in a regular living, and you want to film something, you want to like try to find the best image to film it. And then with digital, it seems that you film everything and then you find the best thing. And I don't know about the film and the tourism. It relates like the difference between a culture that exists and lives, and the thing about a tourism that visits a culture. And these are two different things. I just want to ask if there's something that you want to say about this.
I'm not quite sure.
It can be nothing, it's okay.
If I really understood. But the 90s were a strange in-between age. You see, if some of you might remember this Video 8 and High 8 and all these formats, and it was the first time that you can have, and of course Friedrich used it, and he finds it near the bed, these little machines, and you can have the image in your hand. And that was such a revolution, I figured, that you have a handheld image. You can produce something that you can just then watch in the palm of your hand. And now it's so obvious, we can all do this, and all the time we look at something that we have in our hands, and we all can make movies and photographs, but at the time it was the first beginning of that, and even it was so easy that children could do it. And they could grow up with the idea that they could produce images in school and wherever they lived, and that they can hold in their hands. And that was, I felt it was the beginning of something big. It wasn't yet the digital age, but it was a forerunner of it. And it's something, it did something to the image. It made it sort of, it made it so much more like everybody could own it, and it made it also very relative. Before, the image had been always something precious. When you needed big film cameras, it was sort of a privilege to make movies. Now, out of a sudden, kids could do it, and it was no longer a privilege, and it was good and bad at the same time, but it wasn't sure what. And in that situation, we made the film. It was sort of a limbo situation of filmmaking. Out of a sudden, the whole process was going to be much more democratic, but also much more arbitrary, random. I think random is the better word.
You speak
Hey.
you speak about
The microphone is right next to you.
you use Pessoa, the poetry, and you put an actor there.
Yeah.
Why?
He appears 3 times.
Yeah.
The little Pessoa character. It's a good question. Why? He got so dear to me because I was rereading a lot of Pessoa while I was preparing the film, and I tried to imagine his life. And at some time, when we were doing the hand cranking stuff, I thought, well, what if Pessoa would suddenly appear? And then it became it was just a strange little idea. It was a visit from the past. Actually, we didn't take it so seriously, and the guy who did it was a pantomime, and he thought it was fun to be Pessoa. Maybe I should have taken Pessoa much more seriously.
I think it's better like this.
It's okay like this. And also I thought it was amazing that he had so much to do with Charlie Chaplin, with his hat and stuff. Anyway, it was a stupid idea.
The name Pessoa is translated to nobody and niemand. And is it a mistake of translation, or is it on purpose that the translation is that? Because
It's more like from the French, personne is the same word. Pessoa.
it's like
No?
no, it's not personne, no. It's jemand und
Ja.
nicht niemand.
But jemand is anybody, and anybody is nobody.
No, jemand is somebody.
Yeah.
Pessoa is somebody, is some person, is a person. Pessoa is person. Yes, I think.
I think
anyway,
it's a little.
Anyway, you can use the name of Pessoa like you want, because he has so many
So many pessoas.
heteronymous
Yes,
that
yes,
you can use it.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
I think I was also referring to something that he had written at some point, that he liked to be like nobody.
Yeah. Yes.
I cannot quote him right now, but there was also a line. So maybe I exaggerated and I turned somebody into nobody, into anybody.
So, hello. Somehow, I think we all are sweet victims of this Lisbon of Teresa Salgueiro when she looks at Mr. Winter. And I think some of us who have seen the movie fall in love with her too. Just one look of her and the spectator is falling in love, and even the film is shaped by Fernando Pessoa, the songs of Madre Deus, and somehow people that like Lisbon and came here feel that even today. And now I ask you, like director with sensibility of the film you made with Sebastião Salgado, and he goes to the places and have these stories and discovers, and with this unique way to see people and places. So I would ask you, 25 years later, what would you offer for a new way to show Lisbon? We say besides Madre Deus, Fernando Pessoa, and the melancholia that we see here.
It might be a whole different, it would be a whole different story to come to Lisboa to make a film today. It has become much more difficult to film cities today than at the time. Lisboa had the fantastic advantage that it was like no other place. I didn't know any other place like this. Maybe every now and then there was you could be reminded of Oporto, or in Buenos Aires sometimes there were corners where I thought, oh, this is a little bit like Lisbon. But Lisbon was a unique place, and my city of Berlin was a unique place when we did Wings of Desire. And even Tokyo Ga, which we showed today at the university, was shot in 1983. And it was a unique place, and it was like no other place on the planet. And it is much more difficult today to decipher that and make films in cities and have that feeling that you couldn't do this anywhere else. It is something we've all lost, not only Lisbon, all cities have lost that uniqueness, and I wouldn't know how to shoot in Berlin today, for instance. And I couldn't make a film like this, which took so much the spirit of the city and made something out of nothing. It would be very difficult today. I would be at a loss. I would probably need to really write it and have a much more dramatic structure in order to plan to film in the city today, and to have no structure and be so loose and really shoot it from one day to another was possible because the city was so unique, and because it had its own stamp and it had its own sounds, and I wouldn't know how to do this today. But not only in Lisbon, huh? I was just traveling through China, and I realized I saw 20 cities, and at the end I didn't know anymore which was which. And I was so happy sometimes if I found something specific. And most of the time I was nowhere. And in Lisbon, because I know it, we made 3 films here together. In Lisbon, I still feel that specificity, but it's maybe because I related so much to it when I first saw it in 1980, filmmaking is today less driven by places. And filmmaking today is more about drama or social conflict, but you find very few films today that where the place is a character, because that is something we're all about to lose. That distinction of places that they can be characters. Well, up there.
Hi. I'm curious about something that it's mentioned when Manuel de Oliveira appears. We have nowadays still an idea of the artist, a romantic idea of the artist. The artist close to God, the artist as connected to beauty and to truth, those kind of ideas of the 19th century, like of that literary movement. And so I was curious if that what he says in his appearance is your idea, or if it came out in an improvisation, if it's something that reflects your vision or his vision.
It was entirely up to him what he was going to say there. We discussed that little Charlie Chaplin-esque little scene that we shot with the hand cranker. We discussed that together. And then I wanted Mr. Winter to record some of his voice, because he found him in Federico's footage, and therefore he was going to record his voice. And I totally left it to Manuel to improvise something. And he wanted to know a little bit about the film, and we talked a little bit, and then he said, I know what I'm going to say. And then he said it in Portuguese, and I sort of followed, and it was 10 times as long as what's in the movie now. And we did have to cut it. And I liked it. I liked what he said. I think it corresponded to who he was and the time he represented, what he represented. And I was very, very fond of the little thing we shot with him in front of the camera and behind the camera. I was so amazed when the way he reappeared as Charlie Chaplin in front of the camera and then dances down the street. And at the time he was 95 or maybe 90. He was ancient, and he was just dancing away and jumping around the corner like a
kid.
Like a kid, and that's why I liked what he said before.
Yeah, I think it was beautiful. But I was trying to understand. If we trying to go, there are ideas that became natural. And sometimes when we try to understand them, we have to go back. But I think that your movie, it's forward, it's looking forward, not back. So that's why the question.
Yeah, we try to look forward. And even Federico, crazy as a nut as he is, he was trying to look forward and to extrapolate this history of cinema into something new. And I'm not a nostalgic person. I don't like to think backwards. Anyway, thank you for your question. So, I think we're approaching the last question.
Yes.
Hi, thanks for coming. And I really like the movie. And I wanted to ask you if you have some advice for a young aspiring filmmaker.
Just do it.
Well, I know a producer. I know a set designer. I know a great actor. Are you still acting, Sophia and Joel? No. You find other ones.
But if you, some of you know a bank, just tell me.
Yeah, but you don't need a bank. You don't need a bank. That's the strange thing, because you can make a film today with stuff that you have anyway. I mean, there's a lot of movies already made that are shot on smartphones, and you can do it. And it's really a matter of what you want to invest, not in terms of banking, but in terms of ideas. And if you find something that you can do and nobody else can do, I'm going to come see your movie. But you have to promise that it's not a copy of something. It's got to be yourself. So was that the last question, or was that the last but one?
Last question, I think. Okay.
Maybe it was the last question.
Wim, thank you.
I thank you all.
Thank you.